This week I received an email from the FAA talking about how they've had a pretty high number of runway incursions simply because people weren't communicating properly over the radio. This week we are going to break down some of the tips that the FAA sent us so that we can become better pilots by using better radio communications. Before you're going to make a radio call, make sure you listen to the frequency first. Don't just switch onto a frequency and start making that radio call right away, because you could be stepping on somebody else that's already making a radio call. If you're at a smaller airport, this doesn't tend to happen that often, but man, when you get to larger airports like JFK, Atlanta, or airports with a high volume of student training, when people start stepping on each other, which just means that somebody else is talking on the radio and then you key your own microphone, it steps on their radio call. When that starts happening at big airports during busy times, it can get pretty confusing pretty quickly. So before you make a radio call, listen to the frequency that you're on first. If there's nobody else talking, then you can transmit. Before you decide to transmit, make sure that you think about what you're gonna say. If you don't think about what you're gonna say beforehand, you're gonna key your microphone and just start blabbing off a million things, and your radio call is gonna take way too long. So especially if you're new at making radio calls, before you make the radio call, think about what you're gonna say, and then key the microphone and make it short, sweet, simple, to the point. Make sure that you put the microphone really close to your mouth, because if it's way out here and ATC is trying to hear what you're saying, it's gonna sound like you're 1.5 million miles away. Now, you don't need to be eating the microphone, but make sure it's nice and close to your lips so the air traffic control can understand and hear what you're saying. After you make a radio call, if you're checking in with air traffic control, be patient. Sometimes they're jotting down your number or some information, or they might be on the other line. Once you make your radio call, unclick the microphone, be patient, wait a few seconds before calling them back. The last tip the FAA sent was to be aware of the sounds or the lack of sounds that are coming from your receiver. Make sure your volume is turned up, make sure you're on the right frequency, that you're on the right radio. If all that's happening and you still can't hear ATC, then start doing some more investigation. I have a great story with this one. I was flying the Brasilia into LA. We had just landed on 25 left. We had taxied clear of the runway on 25 left. We were holding short of runway 25 right. ATC had told us to clear of 25 left. I made the radio call as the first officer and said, okay, we're clearing 25 left at, I can't remember which taxiway it is. I made a radio call, we're holding short of 25 right. I look down the runway, there's no airplanes landing, and we are just sitting and sitting and sitting. Then I realized it was a bit quiet. And then I said, why isn't ATC clearing us to cross the runway? There's no airplanes landing. And then I realized I had a stuck mic. The reason it was quiet was because my microphone was transmitting on the entire frequency the whole time, so nobody else could get radio calls in and they could hear everything that me and the captain were talking about. Thank goodness it was nothing bad. But once I realized that, I got my microphone unstuck, and then air traffic control was able to get other airplanes to land and get us to clear the runway. If your radio frequency seems a bit quiet, start doing some investigating so you can figure out what the problem is. Don't be like me in LA and clog up the whole radio frequency when people are trying to land.